Yes, hello everyone, Falcher Ashkady, Cúilín Media. Welcome back to Cúilín Media for another show here. It is episode 23 already since we started the pod at the beginning of September. My name is Seamus Brady. I'm joined by Matthew Hurley and Aaron Prendergast to run through another weekend that is upcoming, full of GAA action. And the games are getting less and less by the number, but more and more by the significance. And we love to see it now. The cream is rising to the top, lads. Matthew, good to have you with us. How you keeping, man?
Yeah, all good, Seamus. Yeah, a disappointing day for myself last Sunday, obviously with SARS falling short against Ballygunner. But look, better team won on the day. You can't really complain about it. Look, best of luck to Ballygunner, best of luck to every other of the hurling teams in the All-Ireland series this campaign. But look, what a privilege it was to be involved with the SARS lads. They offered unbelievable service throughout the whole season. Winning the Cork Championship is still a superb season, and that shouldn't be forgotten either. And absolutely delighted to be involved. But yeah, moving on to the games this weekend, there is a few interesting games. I plan to go to the Bars game on Sunday against Aero Guinness. Should be a decent enough encounter. And yeah, some interesting games across the weekend. Obviously, in LGFA and Camogie, there's not much. There's only one senior game, for example. That's the Bars coincidentally playing against De La Salle in the Munster Camogie Final. So yeah, as you said, Seamus, the games are increasing in terms of importance, but not by numbers. And yeah, looking forward to the action.
It is mental, Aaron, when you think what was only a couple of weeks ago that we were doing the stop the bus and everything like that to run through the games. And all of a sudden now we only have 7 senior games taking place this weekend across all 4 codes. It's crazy how they're just dropping like flies every week.
Yeah, it is mad. It is mad. All right. Yeah. Like it's so quick. How quickly the season has gone by. Like I was even speaking to one of the lads earlier today, and we're saying, it's only, 6-7 weeks before you be going to pre-season competitions with Dublin and everything else, and the league and all that kind of crack. So yeah, kind of incredible really how quickly the time has flown by. And yeah, like there was so much to discuss, nearly too much to discuss at times. And now you're nearly complaining that there's not enough games going on and there's not enough matches. But as you said earlier, the significance of the games is huge. Got some really, really big games. And yeah, looking forward to cracking into all the games.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are going to start off in terms of the silverware that is on the line and then make our way to the semi-finals. So the games in order, we're going to jump into the Munster Senior Camogie Final between De La Salle and St. Finbarr's. Then we have the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship semi-finals, the Ulster Football semi-finals, and then the Munster Football semi-finals. And for any results across the weekend, make sure you keep your eyes peeled on the Cúilín Media Instagram page and the Gaelic Statsman Instagram page as well. There is no doubt about it, Matthew. It is a massive weekend for St. Finbarr's, and we'll get into their game in a minute. But commenting here from Shane B says, best of luck to Ballymacelliot in the Munster Junior semi-final on Saturday. They beat my own club in the Kerry final after penalties in an epic. It's still hurting, but hope they go on a run. And that is a pretty classy way to handle it, Shane. Fair play. But we are going to dive right in, lads. So the Munster Senior Camogie Championship Final of 2025 sees De La Salle of Waterford go up against St. Finbarr's of Cork. Matthew, for our prediction's sake, I think it's pretty clear who both of us are rooting for, even though De La Salle have some unbelievable players who deserve medals, the likes of Beth Carton and everything like that. For my prediction's sake, I hope St. Finbarr's win, but because obviously myself and yourself picked them to win Munster. They're one step away. What's this final going to go like?
It's going to be a thrilling watch, I would say, this game. The Bars would have been probably favourites for Munster probably before the ball was thrown in. When you look the calibre of players that the Bars do have, Saoirse McCartan, Orla Callan, Maeve Callan, Ella Wicked Barrett, Keevan McCarthy. You have some very, very talented players, and obviously Jim O'Connor in the backroom team there as well, who is a legend of Cork Camogie. They won the Cork Camogie Championship really at a canter. They beat St. Catherine's in the final very, very comfortably. Yes, Newcastle West put up a test them throughout the whole game. And obviously Rebecca DeLee and her heroics definitely got Newcastle West back into it. But at the same time, the Bars definitely deserved it. I know it was after extra time. But they deserve to win that semi-final, and they're playing a De La Salle team that won a thriller. Let's call a spade against Turtle Sarsfields. You have Beth Carton in the team, obviously a recent All-Star. Keely Carpet-Barry, we talked about her previously on the podcast, going with Cromer Rangers and De La Salle as well. What a story that would be. to an extent, if she was to win this Munster Championship, that'll be a Munster double for her. You also have Maggie Gostel in the corner forward position, like a very, very good player there as well. Abby Flynn, like you have a lot of Waterford senior players, and also you have John Milan's relation in the forward line as well. And John Milan, he's in the backroom team for De La Salle Camogie team, and he was saying, I heard an interview recently where John Milan was speaking about how it's kind of changed his perspective on watching Camogie. And I suppose if he's watching a family member tear it up the way she has for De La Salle at this present moment in time, you definitely can't discount John's comments. But it is going to be a very interesting game. You have sharpshooters on both ends, not just sharpshooters, but inter-county sharpshooters in the likes of Beck Carton and in the likes of Saoirse McCartan. It is going to be very, very interesting to see the matchups as well. Like I've seen in the Newcastle West semi-final with St. Finbarr's Orla Callan was double marked more or less in that semi-final. It'd be interesting to see if De La Salle do around the same thing in this final. What will the Bars do against the likes of Abby Flynn, against Beck Carton, all these players? You have a brilliant player marker in the back line in Maeve Callan, the car captain, the leader as well. So it is going to be very, very interesting to see that kind of dynamic. It's going to be a close game to call. Obviously, I did predict the Bars to win Munster, so I probably would go for them naturally. But De La Salle will really, really put it up to them. It is going to be a difficult game. And an All-Ireland semi-final on offer as well for either side against Lockheed Shamrocks in the semi. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Obviously, Waterford Club Camogie has been strong over the last few seasons as well. So it is going to be an interesting one to call. And I think whoever wins this game could make a rattle at the All-Ireland as well, because they have the talented players. They have the calibre as well. And yeah, I think, look, the Bars, De La Salle, whoever wins this game will be definitely competitive in the All-Ireland series. I'd probably bat the Bars slightly, but it's going to be very, very close.
Fair play in terms of putting down the mantle quick there. Aaron, Matthew mentioned it there about going and having a crack at the All-Ireland. When you look at who has fallen by the wayside, last year's reigning All-Ireland champion Sarsfields beaten in the Galway final by Athenry. So it's Athenry, Lockheed Shamrocks and Dixborough that are waiting in the rest of the semi-final places. Is whoever comes out of this, are they one of the two that you expect to be in the All-Ireland final and to potentially even go on and win the All-Ireland itself?
100%, yeah. Like they've a massive chance, like especially with the shocks and surprises, that we've saw so far. Like it has really opened it up. Like I think everyone will probably say Dixborough probably are the favourites and they will be the team you'd probably lean towards. But no, like hugely looking forward to this game. I think there's a lot on the line for both. I think Matthew kind of put it really, really well, but I think De La Salle have been improving hugely over the last couple of years, especially with some of the players they've been bringing through. And look, the Bars are an incredible club. I mean, we see how well they do with men's football or hurling. Like they're a massive club and they keep producing at all codes, really. So really, really looking forward to it. And I think whoever does come through this will definitely be fancying their chances. Like especially with Athenry falling in Galway. And then the Ulster champions still to come through as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it pans out. But I think I'd still edge towards Dixborough at this moment in time in the overall series. But who knows what may happen after this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sticking with Dixborough. They're the team that I picked from the get-go to win the All-Ireland Camogie Championship. Now, I was nervous picking between themselves and Sarsfields of Galway when I made that prediction. But Dixborough have looked really, really good. I watched their final against Owler at the Balla. The way that they fought back, Owler led for most of that game. Most of that game, Owler were ahead. And the way that Dixborough just never panicked, kept ahead. People like Ashley McCarty, Aoife Prendergast constantly stood up at the key stages. And Lucinda Gahan as well, who's a really, really experienced Kilkenny inter-county player. These players were the ones that led from the front. And you're looking at the fact that when they were in this position last time, they did kick on and win an All-Ireland. There's nothing to suggest that they're not going to go and do the same thing again. I'll be paying close attention to this one because I think the biggest challenger is whoever wins this one, closely followed by Athenry. I think that there hasn't been a finger laid on Lockheed Shamrocks in Ulster. They've absolutely walked it. And I think that has been to their detriment in the last few seasons. I'd be interested to get your take on that, lads. I think that nobody has laid a finger on them. And then when they've ran into a SARS or a Dixborough in the semi-finals, they tend to get undone because they're running into a brick wall for the first time all year. So I personally think it will be Dixborough who win it. But I think if it's not, I think it's whoever wins this game. I think just because you took out the Giants doesn't mean you're going to win the All-Ireland. And I really believe that Dixborough, they're battle-hardened. They've been down this road before. The tyres look like they're ready to go on another road trip. So I'm going to back... In this game, I'm going to stick with my pick that I made from the beginning in Munster. And I do admit, Matthew, it was heavily influenced by your persuading. So I will owe you a point if I get this prediction correct. But I do think the Bars will win Munster. And we will be discussing later another St. Finbarr's team who are one game away from the Munster football final. And your favourites, Dingle, on the other side of the draw against Mungret St. Paul's. We'll come into that later. But we're all going for a St. Finbarr's victory in this final. And the best of luck to both teams involved. And we'll see what happens when the game goes. So moving on then from Munster Camogie over to Leinster Hurling. This is the only senior hurling action that we have this weekend. It's the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship semi-finals. And we'll start with Ballyhale Shamrocks against Clough-Ballacolla in Nolan Park. Ballyhale Shamrocks, once again, interestingly, having basically home advantage, lads. I just noticed looking at the fixtures, and I'm not trying to get in and be too negative from the get-go here, but who would you say is the favourites in this game? Ballyhale Shamrocks, and the game is played in Nolan Park. Who would you say is favourites in this one? Probably St. Martin's, and it's in Wexford Park. Well, how is this decided? And then, Aaron, I'll go to you first. How is it decided where the game is going to be played? And then how much of an advantage is it to have the games being played in the ground where you've played your club championship? Because we've seen it this year that the game between Nafina and St. Martin's last year was in Parnell Park. Really tight game. Nafina shaded it. This year, very tight game. St. Martin's shaded this time. And it just so happened to be in Wexford Park. Is that a key difference maker?
Yeah, I think it definitely does make a difference. Like, I actually don't know what the process is of them choosing these grounds. I don't know if it's a case of they've chosen these grounds well in advance, because look, they obviously have to put the game somewhere, and it's just a massive coincidence that, you know, both St. Martin's are playing and Ballyhale are obviously playing in Nolan Park. Maybe they could have swapped them around. I don't really know. But yeah, like to have back-to-back home games, you know, like, yeah, it is an interesting one, to be fair, and especially like you look at Ballyhale, Clough-Ballacolla. Like, look, I know Clough-Ballacolla have caused surprises and everything else in the past. I remember when they beat Crokes a good couple of years ago, and you know, they've got good players in there like Willie Dunphy and Stephen Bergen and whatnot. But I think we could all say Ballyhale should be far too strong, especially after what they did to Kilcormac Killoughey. Do you know what I mean? Like, they brushed them to the side, really. Like, and I think we'd all agree Kilcormac and Killoughey are a very good side. So yeah, it's an interesting one, really. I don't know if it is like the reasoning for those grounds. Maybe Matthew might be able to shed a bit more insight in regards to that. But yeah, it is probably a little bit unfortunate, maybe for Naas, or maybe as some of the comments are saying there, maybe it's a home and away rule. I'm not sure.
Potentially, but like Paris says, surely Loughrea will be in Cavan. Both Slot Neil and St. John's are over 2 hours from Cavan, and Loughrea are about an hour and 50 minutes, so neutral for both. The reality is, Matthew, obviously I must be missing something here, but I don't understand why the club championship, especially at this stage, I don't understand why the club championship, especially at this stage, isn't doing more double headers. We've got the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship semi-finals, St. Martin's against Naas and Ballyhale Shamrocks against Clough-Ballacolla, both on the Sunday, both at 1:30, and both in two different venues. Ballyhale Clough is in Nolan Park, Martin's Naas is in Wexford Park. I don't understand why not just make it a double header. Why not just put it in the one ground, make a bit of a day out of it, let the four teams almost get a sense of each other. And that, you know, sets the stage almost for some cool shots for the final and everything like that. But it also makes it more of an occasion for the fans. Because a lot of fans from the first game might stick around for the second game. A lot of fans from the second game might come early to watch some of the first game. Like double headers they do just work, especially in provincial grounds. They really work. It's less organization hassle, and it makes for a better event. I don't understand why. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it's, TV deals that, this, group needs this game to be in this stadium or everything like that. I don't understand fully why. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's some scheduling that happens months ago, but surely it can be done.
On the double header, Seamus, there's a simple reason for this, and I got notified by this. I was talking to someone last weekend about games and all that, and why there couldn't be double headers and things like that. It's because we're entering the winter months now. It will be dark, and there's a plethora of Leinster grounds that will be fit for purpose. Most notably, Nolan Park and Tullamore that do not have floodlights. That's the reason.
Tullamore doesn't have floodlights.
Yeah. Neither does Nolan Park. Portlaoise does, but that's unfair on Ballyhale Shamrocks then, because they have to go to a stadium that Top Balacolla would have played in. To give other grounds, Netwatch Cullen Park, I think, is the only probably logical solution if you're going to play it as a double header, because that has floodlights. But then again, well, it would be big enough for club championship, surely. So yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I think double headers might be a good idea, but the stadium has to have floodlights, and it has to have good kind of drainage systems on the pitch as well, because obviously with these winter conditions, there's got to be waterlogged pitches, and after the first game, the pitch could be absolutely mucky for the second game, and that ends up being, number one, dangerous for the players, and number two, being a poor spectacle. So for those multitude of reasons, I get why there's no double headers, and I get why there's single headers and all that. The thing with Nolan Park hosting the Ballyhale game and St. Martin hosting, obviously hosted by Wexford Park, the thing is, the Fina game was hosted in Parnell Park last year in the semi-final. And would there have been the same conversations last year if we're talking about this, about a Dublin club getting home advantage? So
no, I don't agree with that. I'm always pushing for double headers, man. I would always say, especially in a ground like Parnell Park, where they do double headers all the time in the club championship.
Yeah, but again, it's logistics and things like that as well. Imagine Clop Balacolla, Naas going down the same up and down the same motorway, same as Kilkenny. Wexford maybe not, so they might be going a different route. But imagine three clubs going up the same motorway, the Parnell Park.
But I mean, that wouldn't, in my opinion, that wouldn't be a problem at all. That's what happens on the county days, the inter-county season. In massively larger numbers. That's what happens around the Allianz Leagues in massively larger numbers. I think it makes more sense across the board in everything but the pitch. The pitch is the one thing for me that makes perfect sense. Some pitches just can't take it. But I've seen one instance where I think this, I'm not sure what ground it was to be exact, but I remember we put up a clip about it before, and someone commented saying that one of the pitches that they were saying couldn't do a double header had a training session on before, where they were doing fitness runs around the goal mouth and stuff like that. So there is definitely pitches in Ireland, in my opinion, that would be able to take a double header at this time of the year. And I do think that Parnell Park potentially could be one of them. Now, obviously, I don't work on the pitch. I don't know for a fact. But Parnell Park, right up until the Dublin final, is hosting double headers all the time. And it hosted, I think, 6 matches in 3 days or something recently, around the time of the LGFA final. Had the final on the Friday, and then I had the Senior B games on the Saturday, and then the final on the Sunday or whatever. But there are grounds around the state, around the country, that I think personally could hack it. It's just finding those grounds.
It is. This is another kind of curveball to you, Seamus. What about the roads at this time of year? What about coming home at night?
But you were saying the motorway.
Yeah, but roads are typically this morning. Now I was getting out to go to work, obviously, and there was frost all over my car. There was black ice on the road at patches. Imagine if there's a congregation of cars coming down from a match, and it causes utter consternation on the road. And you kind of have to expect the worst out of this as well. And you kind of have to think about the patrons as well, about all this. You can't just have entertainment when it suits you. You have to realise the conditions. This is winter. This is winter conditions. And I think patrons going to one ground, I think, is enough, personally. Unless, obviously, there's other contributing factors or things like that as well. But for now, when the weather's worse, when there's a lack of stadiums particularly in the Midlands, that don't have floodlights, you kind of have to think about them kind of elements too, not just the entertainment.
No, it's a good point. But the final thing that I'd be saying is that you look at the time that the games are on. So they're on at 1:30. So if you were to do a double header between St. Martin's and Naas and Ballyhale Shamrocks and Clough-Ballacolla, let's just say for argument's sake, we put it in the brand spanking new St. Conleth's Park in Newbridge. Newbridge, motorway exit, easy enough to get to. And then
terrible barking, James. Terrible barking. That's all it's
well capable of hosting inter-county matches, and they would not sell out Newbridge for the club doubleheader semi-finals, but it would make the day more of a spectacle. I just am saying, in the basis, I think there's more positives than negatives here with this. If you're to put it in Newbridge, you would be putting it in a ground that is well capable and perfect size, described by a lot of people, for hosting events like this. And then you have neutral ground. Then obviously Naas would be the most familiar in terms of playing the game there. But I mean, the games are being played in Martins and in Ballyhale. I think if we're talking about a drive as well, the Naas fans have to make the drive anyway. The Clough-Ballacolla fans have to make the drive anyway. And driving to Newbridge means that they're on the motorway for most of that drive. Then on top of that, if you were to play the Martins Naas game at about 1:00 or 1:30 even, the second game could throw in, if you're to play the Martins Naas game at 1, the second game could throw in at 3, and it would be done and wrapped up before it gets dark. I don't think that there's much difference in what we have right now and putting it as a double header. In terms of safety and getting people to the stadium, I don't think there's any difference.
The one thing, extra time, penalties.
Extra time and penalties.
You have to take that into account as well. Because
for Matthew, we have that happening. We have Scottstown and Sean O'Leary Newbridge thrown in at 3:30. We have St. Finbarr's and Aero again is thrown in at 3:30.
In stadiums that have floodlights, the Box Athletic Grounds and Super Valley Park Key both have floodlights.
I think that's an issue in itself as well, though.
Yeah. That's an issue in itself. It's something that does need to be corrected. Like, I noticed that at the All-Ireland LGFA semi-finals, when the Dublin-Galway game was coming to an end, the TG car cameras were holding it together pretty well, but down at the sideline, you really were finding it quite difficult to actually see the far side. So the floodlights point is really good, but my point, Matthew, is the ground I'd highlighted, Newbridge, does have floodlights and has hosted the games quite late throughout the championship. There's, again, the points about why it should be in this ground. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm not saying that it's a terrible idea, but I'm saying we should always be looking to move things forward. In my opinion, given this a trial run, I think it's worth it at least.
Yeah, I think like if they do home and away, like someone I think Ryan was saying in the comments there, St. Martin's went away to Naas last year. So yeah, I'm not too sure, like maybe if you do like a home and away, like in regards to, say if it's regardless of it's Naas, like say if it's another Kildare club against St. Martin's next year, then that Kildare club, you play that game in Newbridge, and then with Ballyhale, Clough-Ballacolla next year, then the Laois club. Like, I think that's fair enough, to be fair, and I don't really have a problem with that, and I think that would make sense. But yeah, in relation to the double headers, like I get both of your points, to be fair. I think like if a ground doesn't have floodlights, I think you are just running the risk, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just, if there is extra time and penalties as well, like you just don't know like how long penalties could go on for ages, like, do you know what I mean? Then it's obviously it's not good for the fans as well, because they won't be able to see the game, do you know? So it's a tricky one, but I think if they could manage it in a way where it was in Newbridge, or even just like a lot of these are inter-county grounds, like let's just get floodlights in there, surely. Like, I don't know. Like,
most club pitches have floodlights. Most college pitches have floodlights. So it should be a high priority to get floodlights in. Yeah. Like, I do genuinely believe that would be a better way to market the whole thing and to like have the club championship. Like, it's Leinster semi-final day in one of the big provincial grounds that we've poured a lot of money into. But the home and away thing as well, I get the home and away thing is a good point. The only thing that I would be thinking of personally is, let's say that St. Martin's didn't win Wexford this year. Let's say that it was Ferns, St. Aidan's, that won Wexford, and then they come out, and that means that Martin's just got shafted with having to go and play Nafina in Parnell Park, and then the next year Ferns get the home draw down at Wexford Park. Like, I do feel like surely the home advantage makes a big difference in a game where, you know, you just have that little edge where you know the ground a little bit better. Because, I mean, that game, especially last year between Nafina and Martins in Parnell, that was razor close. And Nafina did just have that little bit of familiarity with the pitch. You look at some of the scores that they got that day, like Gavin King from the sideline. Gavin King cut a sideline cut over. He's probably been doing that in Parnell Park for a long time. He probably knew the sod. He knew how to go about it. There's little home comforts and stuff like that. And on top of that, another major thing that I haven't even mentioned about having close to home advantage. Obviously, it's not your stadium, but that day when Nafina played Martins, there was, for every Martins fan that was there was about 10 Nafina fans there. And every single score that Nafina got, the ground was so much louder than when Martin scored. So that's another thing, especially when you get into the later rounds, as Pádraig said there. If Loughrea come up against the Ulster champions, whoever they are, that game has to be in like neutral venue as much as you can. You cannot have that game over in a county ground in Galway or a county ground over in like somewhere near Slotneil, because that is very much away territory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you probably have. I agree with that comment saying it should be in Kingspan briefly. I think that's the most logical solution. Like I was discussing with this the other day with another guy, and we were saying the Box Athletic grounds, but then again, is that too far for Loughrea? Probably is. It has to be in Kingspan briefly, but then again,
it depends on the roads to it as well. Like weirdly enough, it depends on the roads to it. It actually takes me as long to get to a ground in Kilkenny as it does to get to Galway City. Like, because the motorway just goes straight over. Whereas if you're going to like a county ground in Kilkenny, it's all the back roads. Like,
yeah, that's it. And as well as that, it depends on the pitch with Kingspan Breffni as well, because I remember last year's All-Ireland semi-final between Cúilín and Coolera Stranded. It eventually got played, but the pitch was absolute crap, really. It wasn't great. Like Con O'Callaghan was splashing all over it, and Niall Murphy couldn't strut his stuff on the pitch. Like, it was just a terrible kind of day for football. So you have to have kind of a good pitch as well in that as well. And there's so many factors, I suppose, in winter, and there's no kind of right answer. There's no wrong answer either, but it's a difficult one to comprehend. But first of all, I question, why are the All-Ireland semi-finals in hurling anyway in the winter solstice in December 21st? I don't know why, to be honest. That's normally worse weather conditions. Could you not play that initially as a plan? Have that on the 14th or the 15th, and if the games get postponed, okay, move to the next weekend. Because you're judging it all on that date then. And you have to think about the worst in these sorts of conditions, in this sort of weather season. You have to think about, what if the pitch is frozen over? What if the pitch is waterlogged? What if there's black ice in the road and it's hard for fans to get to the ground? You have to think about the worst case scenario and all this as well. So yeah, it's a tricky kind of a situation, but at the same time, with the fixtures and the way they make the GA make it, I don't think they're helping themselves in any way either.
Yeah, I do think like it's a very difficult one as well. And the thing is that you don't know if there's a club game on or stuff like that, and there might be a minor game on. Like, we don't know what fixtures might be on, or maybe the county are doing a training session. Like, maybe the ground's booked up, and you don't know these things. For me, the dream, if I was a player, would be to get that air dome back up and running in Connacht and start playing in the air dome during the winter or stuff like that. Pádraig has a good comment here. He said, should maybe the club championships be from, say, March up until October, and don't let county players play for their club during the inter-county season while club season is running? I thought you were going more down the route, Pádraig, of having it revert back to the old way of the club finals being on St. Patrick's Day. And I think there's arguments that can make that make sense to me, because then it takes some of the burden off getting these games in now, if you get what I mean. Like, did you prefer that structure, lads? Did you prefer the Patrick's Day having the All-Ireland club final, or was it more of a detriment? Because I think the other thing that we have to take into consideration when we're talking about this is that the league started later back then as well. So players that were getting to the All-Ireland club final, they'd miss like 2 rounds of the league. Whereas if it was to be that case now, they'd be missing 5, 6 rounds of the league. So it's very different now. But I mean, that structure did have less pressure on getting the club games in no matter what.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like, I feel like it probably was unfair on a lot of those players, to be honest with you. Like, to miss out on big chunks of the club season because you wanted to play with your county, but then obviously vice versa. Do you know what I mean? And then a lot of players trying to juggle both, it just wasn't possible, really. And it was bad preparation. So I think it's a lot better for the players the way it is now. But what I would say is that I do think a bit more common sense should apply, and maybe it should be, like play like, why is the All-Ireland hurling semi-finals before Christmas, but the football semi-finals are after? Do you know what I mean? Like, can we not have both of the semi-finals at the...
That's a load of that's
you know what I mean?
I was a player.
Yeah,
that feeling that, like, you can't really have a beer on Christmas or Stephen's Day.
Yeah, like, it's just I don't know. Like, there is some people have said as well, do you maybe push the club season back a little, ever so slightly, so that you can get it done before the end of the year? So get it done before the end of December. Or maybe
that was one of my pitches. I remember to use. I remember I was suggesting that we get the club championship.
All Ireland club finals, though, like a week before Christmas. I don't know if I'd agree with that either. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is a tricky one. It's a hard one to kind of find. Maybe you could, like, I think if you had the All Ireland club finals at the start of February, I don't think anyone would really, be too bothered by it. But yeah, it's,
because right now what we kind of have is an in-between of both. Like, we're not quite finishing it out in the year, but we're going like 1 week into 2020.
It's very hard to find a balance, to be fair. Like, it's very hard.
And you're going to piss people off if you go left, and you're going to piss them off if you go right. And the truth is that people are going to say it should be done this way, it should be done that way. People have started to like the All-Ireland finals being in summer now, and if you move them, but the purists still want them in September, and if you're to move them to September, you probably annoy half the players and annoy the people who like the summer months and everything like that. And even just chatting to a few lads who I know who play club still, they were saying that the longer you go into championship, the worse the weather gets. So, like, it's really interesting to, like, that their pre-season preparation for the club championship, they're playing, at the tail end of summer, and they're training in nice weather and everything like that, and it doesn't compare at all to conditions that their county final might be played under. Like, the Dublin LGFA final was played literally in a storm, like orange warning, don't go outside, and yet the Dublin LGFA final was still played because they have such pressure to get these fixtures done. Pádraig here says, think they should actually consider it from March until October, and when inter-county season is over in July, just let the county lads play for their clubs if they're still in it. I think it's an interesting one, but I think it would massively favour the clubs that don't really have any county lads, to be honest. Yeah, like, you look at, like, Dublin, Ballymun and teams like that would be fucked. Like their whole spine of their team are inter-county. Then again, it would bring about some fairy tale stories, but who knows? And it would be a good way, to be fair, could work almost like the college football system does in the States, where you spot a player and they get taken up to county level. But it's a really interesting debate. The fixture list, there's nothing that generates more debate than it. But this game is taking place in a neutral venue. We will move on. Actually, no, we haven't even talked about the games. But we'll go to the Ballyhale, Shamrock, Clock, Ballacalla, St. Martin's versus Naas semi-finals. So am I being too harsh, first of all, lads, in saying that there's two fairly obvious favourites here? And then if you're going to pick out of which semi-final are we more likely to see a shock? Which one?
I would say
surely it's Naas Martins that you're more like. No fucking way Ballyhale are losing to Clock. I'd be stunned.
Wouldn't Clock have more experience of taking down a big gun than Naas would?
I think Clock are a better team.
Yeah. The Clock did take down, who was it? They talked about Kilmacud Crokes, didn't they? A few years ago.
They did, yeah.
So
They did.
That's the thing. And Naas, yes, they've taken down Mount Leinster Rangers and I think Shinrone over the last few years, but a big dog. They haven't really done it, Naas. Yes, they've won intermediate All-Irelands and they have those accolades, but Naas haven't really put their foot down on any big dog, whereas Clock have Kilmacud. So I would say more likely, even though I'd say it now that I didn't make the prediction, obviously, because of being involved with SARS, I can now say Ballyhale, I think, are my All-Ireland favourites. But I feel like there's more chance of a shock at the Ballyhale game than there is at Martins, because Clock are more capable of causing a shock.
Yeah, Parks is a good point. So, well, Seamus, if Dubs can pip Limerick in GA, then never say never anymore in GA after that win this year. Don't get me started talking about that game. We won't talk about the club championships anymore. It's a really good point, Matthew. I think you have to look at pedigree and who has upset the apple cart before. My logic basing it off of is similar to the second point that you made, that I think Ballyhale are too good. I think that Martins are a little bit more catchable than Ballyhale are. And I do believe that if Clock were playing against Martins, I think that's the one you point at and say 100% it's not even a question which one we could see an upset in. But because Clock are playing Ballyhale, I think it's really, really tough. Yeah, and then we'd have a final of Ballyhale against St. Martin's if it works out that way. Aaron, how do you see about the semi-finals going?
Yeah, no, to be honest, I think I do agree to an extent that, yeah, Clock Ballacalla have, they've got a bit more experience about them. They've caused surprises in the past and everything else. I don't, that was a good Crokes team, but I don't think that Crokes team was on the same level as Na Fianna, in my opinion. No. I think Na Fianna should have won a lot of those Dublin finals. They had them in the bag and, just got caught and everything else. But
when Ronan Hayes turned into prime Seamus Callan.
Yeah, just right at the end, kind of saving the day. But yeah, no, I think Naas have a bit more potential. Just when you were looking at these games, I just think Clock Ballacalla playing a monster in Ballyhale. There's just no way it happens, in my opinion. Look, clip this up after. Maybe it does happen. I don't know, but I just think it's very, very unlikely to happen in my opinion. Whereas I look at Naas, St. Martin's, Martin's after what they did versus Na Fianna, they beat the big dog. People be watching them now. People be bigging them up and everything else. They've got some brilliant players and Jack O'Connor, Rory O'Connor, the list goes on. But Naas have been building. They've been in the Leinster Championship for a good couple of years now. They've got some brilliant Kildare players in their ranks, most notably Jack Sheridan, so Brian Byrne as well. So they have players who can do the business. But look, ultimately, I still think Martins would get over the line, but I do think Naas, Naas can cause in my opinion, more likely to cause a shock.
Yeah, it's a very good point. A very good point made here by Pádraig Lennon. He says, if Turin win Club All-Ireland, surely just put them into Connacht Senior next year, besides playing intermediate year in, year out. Matthew, interesting enough there, when you look at it, do you think that the Galway clubs would benefit from that as well?
Interesting question. Like, you'd hope that Turin will develop because they do have fantastic players. Obviously, the likes of Fergal Boland in their team, and a few of the Mayo hurlers. Obviously, the majority of the Mayo hurlers. And I do get Pádraig's point there on Turin doing well in the intermediate, because obviously they push Monaleen from Limerick all the way. Aside, they have Andrew LaTouch, Cosgrave, and all these great players in the Limericks that were the Limerick setup. They pushed them all the way in Croke Park in the All-Ireland final. If they do the same again this year, or even go on and win it, I think you have to put them in there. But I have a feeling, could there be a situation where St. Thomas's or Loughrea or Clavard Bridge or whoever in Galway comes out, just come out and batter Turin?
Very
and then the confidence is drained altogether out, and then the season's over for those Turin players, where in many other seasons it might have continued. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I think they beat St. Gabriel's in the intermediate Connacht, as far as I remember, this year, and they're playing the Galway champions in the final. So if they beat the Galway champions, let's say if they beat the Galway champions this year, the intermediate level, by 8 to 10 points, I would say maybe you could try them out at senior. But if they beat them by under 5, I don't think they'll be up to the level simply of St. Thomas's, Loughrea, etc. I'm sorry, that's just the truth of it. Because the Galway intermediate sides, if you can't put them away, how are you going to challenge the senior side? So it kind of does need time. It needs time to develop. It needs time to grow. It's a different kind of situation with Naas, because Kildare they're now with the Liam McCarthy Cup next season, and they were very, very competitive in being at the top end of the Christie Ring and doing well in the Joe McDonagh Cup, whereas Mayo failed to win the Nicky Racker this year when they probably had it in the bag above Roscommon. So that's kind of the difference. There's a difference in levels there. So yeah, it depends. It really does depend. But I think we'll see how Turin get on in the Connacht Intermediate Final, and then we'll probably talk.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where the way that the GAA has to go, in my opinion, the way that we have to keep developing hurling in these counties, eventually, lads, we have to take that jump, don't we? Like, eventually we have to, if we want to get everybody dining at the top table, eventually you're going to have to stick your neck out and, you know, move these counties up from intermediate into the senior club championship. And then you just have to hope to take and match up against them. And the thing is that we've seen examples in the past across all codes that don't really make sense. Like a county that isn't at the top table in terms of the whatever sport it is, and they get a club that just massively overperforms in the club championship. But like a perfect example is St. Gall's of Antrim winning the All-Ireland Football Championship in 2010. Like, absolutely out of the blue. Mount Leinster Rangers, how well they did before Carlow made their massive strides at inter-county level. Mount Leinster Rangers had great success in Leinster. Like, there have been plenty of examples of clubs that have kind of almost been a little bit of foreshadowing for what's to come at county level. And I do think that Leinster Rangers were kind of like that for Carlow. But is there any disputes? Do we think it's going to be a Ballyhale St. Martin's final?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that is what we're going for there in the Leinster Hurling Championship semi-finals, and that takes us away from the small ball for now, but we're sticking in the senior grade, and we're going to move on to the big ball, move on to the Ulster Senior Football Championship semi-finals. And we're going to start off with the game that takes place on the Saturday. Kilcoo going up against Erin Gales Bleak in the Athletic Grounds. This one is the standout game on the Saturday. Kilcoo, lads, they were very impressive against Lough McCrory because, plain and simple, they never really let them get going. Their experience absolutely shone through. And they've done that time and time again. Matthew, they're coming up against an Erin Gales Bleak side who, key to their win were two things. Number one, their composure in the dying minutes there of extra time. And number two, their fast start in normal time. Their Achilles heel was that they nearly threw it away in normal time. And I think we've seen there a couple of things that could make them really, really troublesome for Kilcoo, but maybe a little bit of inexperienced in terms of getting over the line in normal time, and Kilcoo will eat them up if they do that. Everything has to be perfect in this one.
It does from an Orange perspective, definitely. You have the likes of the Kelms there that are very, very good players for Orange, that they will be key in trying to get over the line. Obviously, with Kilcoo, their performance against Loch McCrory, I watched that game in full, and what I describe it as, the way Paul Flynn was describing Tyrone's performance against Cavan in the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarterfinals earlier this year. He said boringly good. That's what Kilcoo were. They just didn't do anything flashy. They didn't score well. They scored a few 2-pointers off Paul Devlin and Johnston, Cúilín Johnston, obviously. But at the same time, they didn't do anything, I would say, extraordinary in the game. They just got the job done, like experienced sides do. And Loch McCrory, as you said, you put it rightly there, Seamus, they didn't look like winning at probably any stage in the game. And this is a Loch McCrory team that have the likes of Roy McCullough and Owen McElhone and these sorts of players that can create danger. So for Kilcoo to put them away the way they did, it was a sign of true champions in many ways. They look so comfortable in this game. They do have to watch a plethora of Orange's players, obviously. The likes of Aegon Ken, Ryan Lyons in midfield is a very, very impressive player. You have the likes of Oran Johnston, who scored 1-2 in the last game against King's Court Stars. Alton Kelgan 1-1 as well. Jack McCann from centre back had a very good performance, as did the wing back Barry McCann. So look, they do have some decent players, Orange's, and they put up a very, very good scoreline against King's Court Stars. Many people probably would have expected King's Court to win it. Many people would have said King's Court have the likes of John Morris. They were the best side in Cavan. Cavan football needs a boost. They've done so well in intermediate and junior. This is a time when the senior club needs to step up. And Orange just blew them, I would say. They got, I think it was 2-3 goals in the first half, and they blew them out of the water. Will they do the same against Kilcoo? I'm not sure, because this Kilcoo team, they don't do chaos. That's another thing with them. They don't do chaos. They just do things simplistically. And I think that'll be enough for them to get over the line this one. I think Kilcoo will win this game probably by under 10 points because Orange's have shown their competitive streak in this championship. But at the same time, it'll be fairly comfortable, I'd say, for Kilcoo to win this game.
Yeah, no, it's really well put. The thing that I would say when it comes to that is sometimes you can get caught, and I think we've seen it before, lads, plenty of times. Two really good examples I think of it, and I'd love to get your takes on it as well, is when you get into a mode where you're like comfortable of just kicking it into cruise control and seeing the game out. You can get caught. We saw it with Dublin Mayo in 2021. Do you remember Dublin went very under Desi Farrell, that hand pass, especially when we were 4 points up. And then Mayo put a bit of a burst together and all of a sudden reeled us in, and then the game went to extra time. And now this example isn't that great because Kilmacud Crokes did win. But when Kilmacud Crokes played Raheny that time and Raheny nearly caught them, Crokes had gone into cruise control. They were completely on autopilot. They were like, yeah, we know what to do. We're going to win the game. Then all of a sudden, bang, Raheny get a goal. And all of a sudden, Crokes are like, fuck, we're only 1 point ahead. And Raheny should have beat them. They should have beat them in normal time. Never mind extra time. So Kilcoo, I fear for them in terms of that, could they, just to play devil's advocate, could they get a little bit too comfortable with this whole kicking it into cruise control and not finishing a team off the way that maybe they did to Scottstown last year?
It could happen, but I don't know if it's going to happen in this game, to be honest with you. I just think you feel like if there was a game where that could have happened, it probably would have been Loch McCrory, because I think Loch McCrory have got far better shooters and Patrick McCullough and Owen McElhone. They've got players who can do the business and do the damage. It is one of them. It could.
Do you think though that just again to double down the point? Do you think just by your point there that maybe Kilcoo might underestimate Erngaz?
It could easily happen as well. And everyone has a plan until you get boxed in the face. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them. If Erin Gales can shake it up a little bit, wasn't it Kilcoo last year who played the Cavan champions, and that game proved to be a lot closer than we expected, or was it the year before or something?
But in the down championship as well, weren't they taking to penalties?
Yeah, there've been plenty of games, you know what I mean? And like Kilcoo probably would, like, you know, playing Loch McCrory, you be on it a little bit more because you know the damage that they can do. Like I don't think any team ever goes in and plans and thinks, oh well, this will be the easy game, so we'll intentionally not play our best. But you know, there is that kind of collective maybe mindset of, right, well, we probably have Scottstown coming up in a final here or something, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll be thinking a little bit to them, and obviously they did fierce damage to them last year. But look, club championships, winter conditions, anything can happen. Like I think a lot of the games will be a lot closer around this time of the year, just because of the conditions as well. You know, like a 4 or 5 point lead in a game like this might be a 10-point lead during summer conditions, you know, that way. So I don't think Aaron Gales will ever be out of it completely. But yeah, like Kilcoo, they are just shutting teams down, and they're just not giving much away. Do you know what I mean? Like Loch McCrory barely had a sniff as well in terms of like big goal chances, or, you know, it never really looked like Kilcoo were like on the edge or worried or anything of that nature. And it's worth mentioning, like, they have just been around the block so many times. Like, they've played in these games so much over the last, you know, and they've come up against Fermanagh champions like Derry Connolly and different teams like that. Like, so they've been here and done it on a consistent basis. And, you know, like, maybe if they were a younger team new in the Ulster Championship, you could see them get caught, but it just doesn't feel like you can't really think of that many big surprises or shocks where they've been upset in Ulster. Yeah. Like, there's nothing really that, you know, they might have lost against big teams, you know what I mean? Like, they lost to Ergo Kieran, I think, maybe a couple of years ago, but like, they don't really,
and Glenn, like, that's not
Glenn, you know, so they don't really do shocks. Like, even in the down championship, although like there've been a few near misses, they've still won them. Like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's crazy.
But again, when it's come time then to turn up, they turn up, and they have kind of, you know, I mean, I can't think of a down final off the top of my head in the last 5 years that they haven't won at a canter. Like, they tend to win them quite comfortably. So I think we're all going for a Kilcoo win here, and Matthew, I do agree with you. I think that they're going to manage this out quite similarly. I think this game will be like, do you know how almost in the Premier League, how like people are saying that, you know, that 1-0 win away from home where you like head in a corner and you just kind of do enough, get the win, and off you go. I think Kilcoo will want to get through this game with minimal damage as well. Avoid any injuries to the likes of the Johnstons or the Brannigans, and keep them all fit. You don't want to lose a key player. And if they're 4 or 5 points up going down the home stretch, I think we'll see a ton of game management, and they'll just get over the line. So I agree. I'm going to go Kilcoo by 5, and that takes us into our other Ulster semi-final, and this one is an extremely difficult game to call. Scottstown against Sean O'Leary's Newbridge in Healy Park in Omagh. This one is on the Sunday. It's live on TG Cahir. Aaron, I'll come to you first this time. I mean, this one is really, really interesting because it's kind of like, which do you think is going to win the day? This is like Scottstown probably have a little bit more flair about them. They have the likes of Jack McCarron in the forward line, Rory Beggan obviously between the sticks, Kieran Hughes in there. But then you have Sean O'Leary Newbridge, who are just solid as a rock. And you're looking at them thinking, you're guaranteed 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 every week from this team.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, it is a real banana skin type game. I think for Scottstown, like, I feel like the pressure is probably like more on them than it is on Sean O'Leary's, you know, that way, because Newbridge have obviously, you know, it's their second year in a row in the Ulster Championship, but they're still kind of a, you know, like, still a kind of relatively unknown quantity at this level, to be honest. You know, and look, they comfortably brushed aside Madden in the last game. You know, like, they're going about their business very well, and it is very quietly as well. Like, there isn't maybe as much fuss about them as Kilcoo or Scottstown, and it probably is because, you know, we haven't seen too much of them. They haven't been on TV that much. People haven't got too familiar with them, other than people who would obviously maybe follow the Derry Club Football Championship and everything else. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a very close game. And like, I look at the players that Scottstown have, and you think, surely at some point they're going to make the breakthrough, but you probably would have thought that a couple of years ago.
What the fuck is going on?
I know, yeah. I know, here I don't know. Maybe if there's is that a sign, lads? I think Scottstown maybe are going to win the All Ireland. I think.
Starts talking about Scottstown and balloons come up.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, what's going on? Like, I'd love to know that effect. Actually, to be honest, it'd be cool.
I didn't even touch anything.
It must have been triggered by a word that Aaron said or something. I don't know. Scottstown and then the balloons went up. Must be all Ireland winners.
No, do you know what? Maybe this game is going to be fireworks. Maybe that's what it's telling us. Maybe this game is going to be
or a circus.
Yeah, a pure circus and everything else. Yeah.
Maybe the ref will get chased out of the ground by a dog or something. I don't know. But anyway, we'll have this moment to say we told you so. Matthew, when you look at this game, obviously myself and yourself have talked up in particular out of the four of us. I think me and you have been the main ones kind of flying the flag for Newbridge. When you look at the hype or the lack of hype around them compared to how much hype was around Waddy Grange Glen when they went back-to-back in Derry. Now, they ended up going 3 in a row and then winning the All-Ireland Championship. But like even before that final debacle against Kilmacud Crokes, like there was still a lot of hype around Waddy Grange Glen before that final. Way more than there is around Sean O'Leary's Newbridge. And I think that's why for Scottstown, this is a tough matchup because you've got right here a very, very tough opponent that you won't get a lot of like fanfare from it if you win. You won't get as much as maybe you'd get for beating a Kilcoo, for example.
Probably won't know. And this Newbridge team in terms of camaraderie is probably up there. I think Patrick mentioned in comments as well, the 13 starting 15 are related, and I think if I'm correct in this, the only ones that aren't related are the corner forward Patrick McMullen and the goalkeeper, which is kind of surprising. You mentioned solid as a rock, Seamus. Their goalkeeper's name is Nathan Rocks, so that's where it comes from, I'd say. So yeah, those are the only two. I think there's McGrogans, there's McAteers, there's Dohertys, there's Youngs, there's all those families in this team as well. Like in the back line, like out of the 6 backs, 4 of them are McGrogans. Which when you have a family feel, you have a family feel in this team, and obviously you also have McGrogan at number 9. So out of the back 9, you have 5 out of the 9 there McGrogans.
It's nuts.
It's some family tree there. Obviously you do have without the family connections, you have some superb players there as well. The likes of Oisin Doherty, Connor Forward, the likes of Connor Doherty, we know as a marauding wing back, I would say, in the Derry senior football team. He's midfield for this team in Sean O'Leary's Newbridge. Mark Doherty, a sub for Derry, he's at centre forward in this team. Eamon Young and Sean Young, who would have been on the Derry underage teams in the past few seasons, at full forward and wing forward respectively. Patrick McGrogan at wing back. Like, they do have some talented players along with the family ties, and they look a well knitted together bunch, I would say. And the way they beat Madden was comprehensive, surprisingly enough comprehensive. They won the game by 6 points, but if it wasn't for Madden scoring a late 2-pointer and a few flurry of scores, the game could have been well out of the reach of Madden. And Madden are a decent side, the likes of the Grimleys in that team. And the thing is, and you don't want to mention these phrases because like they're too much with soccer and the other sports and things like that. But Scottstown are the ultimate, I would say, bottle jobs. Like every time you see Scottstown in a game that you think, okay, they're going to light up here, they fail to deliver. The game against Kilcoo was a prime example last year. They conceded 5 goals really easily, I would say, in that game. It was just, I would say, kamikaze defending at some stages from that Scottstown team that do have experienced, talented players. So it was just a shock to see all the goals going in one time. Like, not just the likes of the Hugheses and the McCarrans and the McCarthy's. You've Ryan O'Toole, who's a decent player for Monaghan in that team too. So I'm struggling to believe how on earth they haven't put big games away as of yet. It's difficult enough to comprehend. Will they do it this weekend? I'm not sure. I think Sean O'Leary's Newbridge have looked better in this championship than Scottstown. I think Newbridge could win this game, and not just the family ties and not just the players that they do have. They beat Schlottneel in the semi-final. They beat Watty Graham's Glen last year. They've won the Derry Championship twice in a row. I don't think they're getting the respect they deserve. And I think they'll win this game on Sunday. I think Newbridge will win the game against Scotstown. It might go to extra time, but I think Newbridge have an onus to go on and win this game.
I completely agree. I think the Newbridge are going to do it. I really think that you have to go with who you've seen win these big games. And the reality is, I think if Waddy Graham's Glen, and I honestly think even with Slot Neal, if they were in the position that Newbridge are in now, I'd be very tempted to tip both of them to win this game. And Newbridge just have this ability to fly under the radar that's pretty impressive. I think this is like, if we're comparing it, to use one more football soccer reference, but in a World Cup, when a team comes out of their group and they're just pretty hard to beat, well set up, well structured, well organized, and then it was usually like England that would come up against them. They'd have on paper everything you need to go win the game, but they would just come unstuck, and the press wouldn't fully understand why this is such a hard team to beat. But when you're there, I think Scotstown will be fully aware of what they're facing into. I think they've got all the pressure to win. And I think Newbridge are just going to beat them, because I think as well, on top of that, I think the conditions lend themselves to, as you were saying, Matthew, that team that is just unbreakable, that are just so bonded together. And I think when the game's in the fire, I think you look at how comfortable as well they beat Maddens, who are a very good side. I'm going Newbridge by 2. Aaron, is it a sweep for Newbridge, or are you going to go against the grain?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you've put forward a very, very good case. You know, you'd be good lawyers here or something.
You'd be good on the traitors.
Yeah. I'll stick with my original prediction of Scotstown. Look, I am a bit of a Scotstown fanboy, so I think maybe we'll stick with them. Look, I'm living. I do agree with your points. Like, I think they are a team that, for whatever reason, over the last 10 years, they're that team that builds you up to let you down. You know, a little bit like that. You feel like they have the talent and the players there to go and push on. They just can't quite break it. I just look at the talented players and I think surely at some point they're going to do it, and I'll back them to come through this.
I mean, I think as well, just to give one little counterpoint against the things that I was saying in terms of, but we always looked at Ballybowden as that, and then this was the year that Ballybowden haven't let us down yet. They still have to play the rest of the year. I don't know if you heard my dogs there in the background there. Somebody's come to the door in the house, but we're going to move on to the next round of games. So we are predicting that Kilcoo will be in the Ulster final, and then myself and Matthew are predicting that it will be Sean O'Leary Newbridge against them. And Aaron, you're going for Scotstown to be facing them, and that either way, we're guaranteed a banger of an Ulster final, no question about it. Matthew, this one is all on you, man. St. Finbarr's against Éire Óg Innis in Porky Cueve. The Cork champions against the Clare champions. Obviously, Éire Óg Innis, one of the few teams now. Is there anybody actually else across any code who has a shot at winning a provincial double? They are just one step away from it in the hurling, but they've got a massive hurdle to get through here against St. Finbarr's, because I think from last weekend, I think Finbarr's going to Clonmel and beating Clonmel Commercials was massively slept on in terms of how difficult that would have been to do.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you, Seamus. And I think Finbarr's are being slept on by most of the public, to be honest with you. And I think it's generally because they're a Cork club. And a lot of people are saying, Dingle will win this championship. Dingle will win easily. Dingle are being underappreciated. If there's any team underappreciated over the last few weeks, I think it's the Bars. I think they have fabulous footballers. I think they have experience. They brought Kilcoo. We talked about Kilcoo winning Bourne. They good earlier in the chat. That Finbarr's team brought Kilcoo to extra time in the All-Ireland semi-final. And on another day, could have won that game in Portlaoise. They have the majority of that team still. The likes of Brian Hayes, the likes of Ian Maguire, the likes of Stephen Sherlock, obviously. And they do have some fantastic players in that team. Obviously, there's a few changes in goalkeeper. I know John Kearns was part of the team in the Kilcoo game, but they have a very good goalkeeper now in Darren Newman, and he was absolutely excellent. I know he could see the 2 goals, but no goalkeeper would have stopped those goals. He's in the Cork team next year. He's a really, really good goalkeeper. Kick out, comfortable under the high ball, very good shot stopper. I think he does have the lot. He's a very good player. And a lot of people would have mentioned Sherlock, and a lot of people would mention Maguire, etc. for their win against Commercials. My star was nearly William Buckley. He's a Cork hurler. Well, he's in the background, I would say, panel in the Cork hurling team at this present moment in time. But damn, he's a good footballer. He's a really pacey player, really strong player as well, really well built. I think he's a very, very skillful baller in that team as well. The likes of Wigan, the Barrett and all them. Obviously, they don't probably help the Cork team as such, because the Barrett's best footballers are the likes of Hayes, Buckley, Wigan, the Barrett. Like, they're all hurlers for Cork. Like, could we not just get one playing for the footballers? I know Hayes is not going to play football. He's just not going to do it for Cork. But he did play against Dublin Crow Park that one time. Many people might forget that. But look, they're fantastic footballers, and they shouldn't be slept on whatsoever. And they are a very, very good team, and they got over 70% conversion rate against Clonmel. And somebody's mentioned to me the other day as well about Sherlock. He didn't have probably a standout game the last day, but he still scored 9 points. He still scored 3 2-pointers. Like, a lot of people talk about Clifford and all these players next season. When Cork have Stephen Sherlock back in the inter-county team next year, teams in Division 2 are going to fear this guy, because he can kick in any conditions for 2-pointers. He is so good. And I think Gartui from Clubber used this analogy. He said Stephen Sherlock is the Mr. 2-pointer. I don't know, would any players disagree with that around the country? They're Gartui's words, not mine. Just putting that out there. But look, he's a fantastic footballer. I'm delighted he's back at the Cork team next season, and I'm sure John Cleary and the rest of the Cork backward team are delighted he's back as well. Look, the Bars are a very good team. I think they're probably favourites going into the game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh as well. A pitch they are used to against Aero Guinness as well. Look, it's a fantastic achievement for Aero Guinness, you have to say, for getting to this far in both codes. There was one team actually that was doing well in both codes until they threw the football. St. Martin's actually. They put out their B team against the West Meath champions. I don't know what was that about. But anyway, we'll move on from controversy there. But yeah, it's a fantastic achievement for Aero Guinness to go this far into it. They do have some dual players. The likes of Aaron Fitzgerald is the key one. Would David really come back into the football fold? I'm not sure. He's a very good footballer, but I think he's focusing on hurling at this present moment in time. But the thing that will drag Aero Guinness down, I think, in the quarterfinal against Rathcormac from Waterford, they scored 20 points. 16 of them came from Gavin Cooney. Or not Gavin Cooney, sorry, Mark McInerney.
Yeah.
So look, it is going to be, they are going to be very, very reliant on him. And if they are very reliant on him, the Bars will put somebody on Mark McInerney. He is a very, very good footballer. I did mention Gavin Cooney there. He is an excellent footballer himself. Iggy Muguero as well, Manus Doherty, Aaron Fitzgerald. Like, they do have a plethora of clear inter-county talents in that team. So they can't be slept on. But I think the Bars' home advantage, the way they got past that Clonmel challenge, and I do definitely agree with you, James, he's being slept on for another reason as well. Clonmel have the likes of Sean O'Connor, Mikey Quinlivan, these sorts of players that if they played football for Tipperary would be higher than Division 4. I guarantee you. Like, if Mikey Quinlivan put on Tipperary jersey this present moment in time, that would improve them fourfold. So
Plus
it's just
the way that they won. Plus the way they won. And going down the home stretch, the game was in the fire and they pulled it out of the fire. Did they hit the last 4 scores or something, was it?
It was, yeah. And William Buckley got 2. I think Maguire got a very good score, fisting over the bar as well. And the way they defended like dogs, even towards the end of the game. Like, they were, like, Clonmel were going for goals. I think Mickey Quinlivan had a shot. There was a substitute that had a shot as well. And the Bars just weren't letting them through. And I just feel like this never say die attitude will be enough to get them over the line. Like, we've seen on so many occasions Cork football champions go into the quarterfinal and they struggle initially. Castlehaven needed extra time to beat Cratloe. Nemo lost to Clonmel. But the Bars beat them by 3 points and 4 points, as you mentioned, James, going down the home stretch there. So they are a serious team. And I think they'll beat Aero Guinness at the weekend. Aero need to have other scores than Mark McInerney. If they could do that, they have a fighter's chance, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the Bars are going to take this one. I think Aero have done, as you said, really, really well to get to this point, and to win a double is absolutely incredible. But again, I feel like you look at the Bars going into enemy territory there, going into Clonmel and beating Clonmel Commercials when the game was really in the fire. That does show your mettle and what you're made of, and that like that's what it takes to win club championships. And the reality is that they still have the core of that team that went to the semi-final. It was the year they lost to Kilcoo. Did Kilcoo win it that year?
They won, in the final against Kilmacud.
Okay, well there you go. Like, I mean, they were really, really close to them that day. Now, had they got through, I think Kilmacud would have taken some beating in that final as well. But the reality is they were top 3 clubs in the country that year. So there's no question about it. I think you have to favour the Bars. But I think Éire Óg have a puncher's chance. And interestingly as well, you've got Jimmy Barry Murphy in the backroom team for the Bars. And if there's one person who knows a thing or two about winning silverware in both football and hurling, it's Jimmy Barry Murphy. But I'm going with the Bars. Aaron, is it a clean sweep for the Bars or?
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, no, I'd agree with everything both you lads said. Really, yeah, no, I think the Bars should be far too strong.
And then the other semi-final, I'll go back to you first, Aaron. Dingle against your favourite team, Munster St. Paul's.
Yeah. Well, if you lads know me, like I backed Munster St. Paul's for the whole year
from round one.
From round one, do you know what I mean? To win their first ever Limerick title. I
was actually watching Munster St. Paul's when they were founded. Swear to God.
Really? Yeah.
No. I was in the bar when the club was getting founded.
Yeah, you're in there now. I thought could be in the L Foundation now. Look, I'd be lying if I knew a huge amount about Munster St. Paul's. Like I was looking at their team, there isn't a huge amount of county stars within their ranks, and look, that's credit to them. Like fair play to them for coming through what they did to topple Newcastle West in the way that they did, who have been, I know they didn't win the Limerick Championship last year either. Newcastle West, they won it, so probably is a sign that things have changed a little bit. It's very, very hard to bet against Dingle. Look, they're massive favourites for this game. Especially after seeing what they did in the Kerry final and everything else and what they've achieved over the last couple of years. It's very, very hard to bet against them winning this very comfortably. Look, club championships are mental. I do remember, I think it was a Rackcormac one year, giving a really good game against the Kerry champions. Remember Cairns O'Rahilly's one year as well, struggling against one of
that year was bullshit, man. Cairns lost 3 games in Kerry and won the Munster Championship.
Bit of a weird
semi-final, even though they'd lost 3 games in the Kerry Championship.
Yeah, like where is this game being played actually?
It's in Austin Park.
Austin,
yeah. Curtains be very cool. I was thinking, because like they might. I wasn't expecting this to be in the Gaelic grounds, but I think it was going to be in like a local club pitch in Limerick somewhere, and that might maybe give it an advantage to Paul's. But no, I think Dingle will probably win by 8, 9, maybe 10 points.
Yeah, let's be honest, lads. Paul Gainey's going to tear it up. He's going to absolutely tear it up. I think Paul Gainey's going to finish with like 11 points or something like that. Like, did you see the viral clip earlier in the year from Clubber of like Gainey hitting something like 4 2-pointers and a half or something? Like he hit something ridiculous. But like when he's on song and he doesn't have somebody elite marking him, he tears it up. And I do really think he could be a real dagger for Dingle in this game. So yeah, we're going with a Dingle St. Finbarrs, unless Matthew, you have any objections. You did call that Munster St. Paul's would win Limerick, but this is an almighty test now.
It is, yeah. I think Dingle will win this game as well. Look, they're fantastic players, Dingle, obviously the Gainies and likes of Thomas Sullivan and all them, but I'll be interested to see actually the team sheet for Dingle at the weekend. Look, I think Dingle will win the game against Munster and probably be comfortable considering it is in Austin Park. I'd be very interested in the team sheet though. Will Mark O'Connor be on it? Or is he gone back down to Australia?
Yeah.
That will be the one bit of nugget of information I'll be very interested to see on Sunday.
Yeah, and to be honest, that plays a massive role. And I'd say, Aaron, you're probably saying, Matthew, I know you're going for the Bars either way. I'm more on the fence. I think either of them could win it. But I think if Mark O'Connor is not there, I think it tips it towards the Bars for me. I think he's that important, especially when you match it up with how strong the Bars are around midfield. with Ian Maguire, and like Dingle needs someone who can go toe to toe with those lads, and Mark O'Connor you're not going to find much better than him for doing that. So I think that's how important it is. But anyway, that is the senior club championship action, and as I was saying, keep an eye on the Cúilín and Gaelic Testament socials for any results and everything like that across the weekend. But before we wrap up, lads, I think it's important as well to give a big shout to Conor Myler. He announced his inter-county retirement just there. He won an All-Ireland, of course, with Tyrone in 2021. He was an extremely versatile footballer, still is an extremely versatile footballer. I mean, it's not like he's never going to play another game of Gaelic football. Extremely versatile footballer, could play basically anywhere around the middle for Tyrone. And on top of that, one thing I've always admired about him is how he conducts himself off the field. You look at the amount of work that this guy does for the women's game and everything like that. He is a gent. I've had so much respect for him throughout his career. And unfortunately, he has been hampered by injuries now over the last couple of years. And I think that's played a massive reason in why he's decided to call it a day. You're looking at the Tyrone team now as well. They're in that era where they've had so much success at under 20 level that it's kind of like almost time to pass the baton on from the likes of Myler, Maddie Donnelly and these type onto the Owen McElhones and the Rory McCulloughs and the Canavans and everything like that. So I think that's played a massive reason into his decision to retire as well. But lads, a cracking player and well-deserved retirement.
Absolutely, yeah. He was a fantastic footballer. And you mentioned versatile there, Seamus. Nothing more encapsulate his versatility than 2021. He was actually around the wing forward position. You normally played around that for Tyrone, but he was named at number 5 as he won an All-Star in 2021 when Tyrone won the All-Ireland. And he was that kind of guy that linked up the play very, very well. Absolutely unreal footballer. Very underrated, I would say, as well. One thing as well, I've seen that, I don't know, is this completely confirmed now by Conor's Instagram post, but it doesn't. Apparently, some people said that he might not play football again because of his injuries. Now, if that's the truth, that is a shame. It really is, because what a fantastic player for not just Tyrone, but his club in home, St. Enda's. He's won a Sigerson Cup at St. Mary's University as well. 2 Tyrone Senior Football Championship titles with his club in home, St. Enda's. 3 Ulster Senior Football Championships, and All-Ireland Under 21 crown as well. So you could say he's probably won the lot. He won the Sam Maguire Cup, obviously, in 2021, and he won an All-Star as well. Probably one of the most underrated footballers in our generation. As you rightly mentioned there, Seamus, like the work he did with the GPA in the past few years and trying to get more recognition for the ladies' game in LGFA and Camogie, and trying to get his word across and saying that the male footballers should, his fellow male footballers should follow the lead and rise this game up as much as he hopes it to be, obviously, as well. And what a player, but what an individual as well in terms of Gaelic games that we will miss over the next few seasons. What a player, what an engine, what a versatile individual as well. And what a great human being for the game of Gaelic games over the last few years. Obviously, wishing him all the best in retirement. In inter-county anyway. I'm not sure if he's retired in his club days as of yet, but if he is, all the best in his retirement. And hopefully he does find a coaching role somewhere. I'm sure he will, because he was that kind of a player too that will gain respect from anybody up and down the country.
Yeah, well put. I think he screams that type that I wouldn't be surprised if O'Rourke has him straight back in as a coach. Just when you look at how clever he played the game and his IQ for it and everything like that. And then, as you mentioned there, actually, how he conducts himself off the field. To me, Aaron, he screams like that type of, when Jim Gavin had like Darren Daly in with him and Jason Sherlock and people like that who like could just conduct themselves really well around him. Paul Griffin and people like that, Brian Cullen. I think Conor Myler's nailed on for a coaching role. Maybe not next year, but definitely down the line.
100%, yeah. And there's no better county where that's happened. Like Tyrone have been experts at, you've seen the players through that, great team of the early 2000s and them going on to manage under 20s and everything else. And then, a lot of them going on to, better kind of bigger coaching roles and everything else, and county jobs and different things like that. So, yeah, absolutely. You could see it with Conor Myler. There's no doubt about it. Like, I think he's a he's the type of player that really kind of embodied that 2021 Tyrone team. Like that Tyrone team probably wasn't as maybe technically good as what Kerry was at that moment in time, or maybe even Dublin at that time. But what they did have was like just grafters, you know what I mean? Like players who were willing to do the dirty work. That, you know, your Kieran McGeary's and these type of players as well. And Conor Moyler like embodied that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I remember like watching Tyrone in 2021 in that game versus Kerry, and it was like, you know, you'd have lads, you'd have forwards kind of coming back as defenders. A lot of defenders, you know, would almost be playing as attackers. I remember Porrick Hampsey scoring a worldie of a point in that All-Ireland final versus Mayo, like on the outside of his boot. So yeah, no, I think Conor Moyler like embodied that Tyrone team. And yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think him going into a coaching role could definitely be something that we could see soon.
Yeah, I think we will see, and I think that's a nice place to leave the pod there for this weekend preview show, episode 23 on Cúilín Media. It will be Aaron and none of us on Sunday. Aaron will be carrying the can for us this weekend, so appreciate that, Aaron. And we have a special guest coming on the show, the first time ever in Cúilín Media history that we will have someone who is an outsider coming in on the show and joining us. So tune in for that on Sunday at 8 p.m. And until then, guys, Torah.
Follow your instinct, baby. Follow your instinct.